Hello, Dr. George Thomas.
Hello, good evening.
George Thomas, let
And
me introduce
Jonathan.
our advisor, Dr. Jonathan sir. He was the former director, Center for Plant Protection Studies, TNAU. Now he's the
Very good.
advisor. The Indian Agricultural Startup.
Oh, I see.
Nice meeting you
Thank you.
on this occasion.
Thank you.
I know for 30 years, Dr.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, let us start, sir.
As sir, principal, sir, shall we start now? Sir, principal, sir, shall we start now?
Okay.
So good evening to all of you. Today we are going to celebrate the World Environment Day, and I request our student organizers to start the proceedings.
Better environment is better tomorrow. It's not yours, it's not mine, it's ours. Yes, let's hold our hands together to make our Mother Earth beautiful.
A very fine evening that we are here together to celebrate the World Environment Day. It's my immense pleasure to welcome all our renowned speakers, delegates, faculty members, and participants to this fine occasion.
This day is celebrated by engaging governments, business, celebrities, and citizens to focus their efforts on a pressing environmental issue. The theme of this year's World Environment Day is Reimagine, Recreate, Restore, as 2021 makes the beginning of United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration.
Don't be greedy, it's time to be greeny. Let's start the function. Welcoming is a tradition of India. Now, I request the supporting pillar and backbone of TIAC, Dr. S.A. Anil Kumar sir, the principal of TIAC, to deliver the welcome address. Please, sir.
I think sir is facing some connectivity problem. So let's wait. I will inform sir.
So, shall we continue with next person, sir?
Wait, Meda. Wait for a few minutes. I think sir using for pocket network. Now sir is busy with the mobile. I think he is not listening. Wait.
Okay, sir.
Sir, your mic is unmute, sir. Sir, principal, sir, your mic is unmute.
Now, our moderator is our advisor. Is he here?
Yes.
In the meet?
Yes, sir, he's on the line, sir.
He's on the line.
Yes, yes.
Jodhanand sir, shall we start?
Yes, sir, we will start now, sir.
Moderator, please.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir also online, sir.
Is not seen here.
The sir is online.
But he is not responding.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, shall we start?
Yes, we can start.
We'll start.
We can start.
Okay, thank you. So, good evening, all. Respected Chairman of the Rajas Group of Educational Institutions, Dr. Joy Raja sir. Respected Chairman, Kerala State Biodiversity Board, Dr. George Thomas sir. Respected Advisor and former Director, Center for Plant Protection, TNAU, Coimbatore, Dr. Jonathan sir. Respected Vice Principal, Dr. Kumar sir. Respected Professor and Head Department of Agronomy, Dr. Alagapan sir. Respected Coordinator, Cell, Center for E-Learning in Agriculture, Professor Johnny Prasad sir. Respected faculty members, administrative staff, and my dear students. Today, we are celebrating the World Environment Day throughout the globe on the focal theme, ecosystem restoration as conceived by the United Nations. You know, the United Nations have launched UN Decade for reimagine, recreate, and restore ecosystem restoration. Now, this will continue up to 2030. Let me ask 3 questions. Do you know we are reaching a point of no return for the planet? Do you know that we are facing 3 environmental disasters? There is biodiversity loss, climate disruption, and escalation in pollution. Do you know we are ravaging the fragile ecosystem that are safeguarding our food security, biodiversity, and water supply? And because of the degradation of the ecosystem, the well-being of 3.2 billion people around the globe, that means more than 40% of the global population is adversely affected. Let us be not panic, let us be optimistic, because the Mother Earth, the ecosystem, the environment is resilient. Still we have sufficient time to repair, still we have sufficient time to restore, still we have sufficient time to rebuild the degraded ecosystem because of our activities. That is why the United Nations have launched UN Decade for ecosystem restoration. What do you mean by the term ecosystem restoration? Ecosystem restoration means restoring the damaged, destroyed ecosystem and conserving the ecosystem that is still intact. In fact, it is absolutely essential. Restoration of the ecosystem is absolutely essential to live in this environment. Let us be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Let us be part of the restoration of the ecosystem process, not the destruction. Let us be part of sustainable utilization of the ecosystem, not part of exploitation of the resources. Let us plant trees and not uproot trees. Let us nurture plants and not cut plants. Let us clean up our water bodies. Let us green our cities. Let us try to rebuild, let us try to recreate a new, healthy, vibrant, dynamic ecosystem to serve the n number of generations to come. With this background, I welcome the most respected Chairman of the Rajas Group of Institutions, Dr. Joy Rajas sir, for our webinar. I hope he will be joining before the end of this session. So on behalf of the staff and students and my own behalf, let me extend a very warm welcome to the Honorable Chairman of the Rajas Group of Institutions, Dr. Joy Rajas sir, to this webinar. The chief guest of today's function is Dr. George Thomas sir. He is the Chairman of the State Biodiversity Board, Kerala. Dr. George Thomas sir is a BSc AG man. I am very proud to say that he is a BSc AG man. He took his BSc AG and MSc AG from Kerala Agriculture University and PhD from IARI, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi. His field of specialization is agronomy. After completing his PhD program in agronomy from IARI, New Delhi, he joined the State Department of Agriculture as an agricultural officer and worked for a very short period. Then he joined Kerala Agriculture University. He served Kerala Agriculture University in various capacities as assistant professor, associate professor, and then professor and head Department of Agronomy. And Dr. George Thomas sir retired from Kerala Agriculture University as the Dean of the College of Horticulture, Kerala Agriculture University, Botanical Garden, Trichy. After retirement, he served as the Director of Research of the Integrated Rural Technology Center at Palakkad. Then he was picked up by the government of Kerala for the comfortable post, Chairman, State Biodiversity Board. It is because of his hard work that he could attain all these positions. A BSc AG man is now occupying the Chairman of the State Biodiversity Board, and for which all BSc AG graduates must be proud of. About 40 years back, that is in 1977-81 period, just like our students at TISC Radhapuram, George Thomas sir was studying at College of Agriculture, Millennium. Because of his hard work means he has put in 37 years of teaching, research and extension experience in Kerala Agriculture University. He received the Best Teacher Award. He received the Best Scientist Award. He received the Karshaka Bharati Award. Karshaka Bharati Award is for the best farm journalist. Dr. George Thomas has published 17 books and 350 other publications. Now, some of the books are Land and Water Management, Forage Crops, Principles of Agronomy, etc., etc. And the best-selling book is Research Methodology and Scientific Writing, published by Springer Nature. Now, this book on research methodology is referred by almost all the research scholars of all the universities, not only in agriculture universities, but in other universities. Now, my dear students, what you have to understand, BSc AG is a launching pad. Once you acquire the BSc AG degree, you can go to any destination. You can fly. It's a launching pad. It is just like an airport. It is a launching station. You can take your aircraft. You can take your spacecraft to any destination where you want to go. What you have to do? You have to work very hard. Now, my dear students, your examinations are fast approaching. The final examinations of the second years and third years are starting on 16th, and the first years on the first week of July. So you work hard like Dr. George Thomas sir and try to become the topper in all the examinations. So Dr. George Thomas is a model for emulation by our students. You can reach any destination if you follow the path of Dr. George Thomas sir. With these few words, on behalf of the staff and students of the Indian Agriculture College, Radhapuram, and my own behalf, I extend a very warm welcome to Dr. George Thomas sir to our webinar on ecosystem restoration. When I requested him to deliver a talk on ecosystem restoration, he said that he will talk about ecosystem restoration. That is the focal theme of this year's World Environment Day. And he said that I will also talk about celebrate biodiversity, the theme of the last year. So he's a committed teacher. He wants to teach something to the students. So welcome Dr. George Thomas sir to our midst. Now our advisor, Dr. Nyodhan sir, he was the former director of the Center for Plant Protection Studies in TNIU. He is very much involved in conservation of wetlands. He took very serious efforts to create an island of wetland. It's about 5 acres in the drylands of the Agriculture College campus to conduct the agronomy work experience rice program. So he's a nature lover, he's an environmentalist, and he is deeply committed to restoration of biodiversity, restoration of ecosystem, etc., etc. So on behalf of the staff and students and my own behalf, I extend to you, sir, a very warm welcome to this webinar. Welcome, sir. I also welcome our Vice Principal, Dr. Kumar, Professor and Head Department of Agronomy, Dr. Alagapan, sir, the Coordinator, Cell, Center for E-Learning in Agriculture, Dr. Joni Prasad, sir, all the faculty members, our administrative officer, Mr. Sami Sundaram, the IT expert, Mr. Vikram, and all other students who are joining in this Google Meet. Let me conclude. Once again, I extend a very warm welcome to one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to use this opportunity to thank our respected chairman, sir, who is beyond this successful institution. He puts all his efforts and thoughts for building this temple of learning. It's my rejoicing moment, and I feel privileged to thank Dr. S.A. Joy Raja, sir, chairman of Raja's Group. Hope he will join the meet soon.
And then next, I would like to invite the former director of TNIU, the supporting soul of TIAC, our advisor and moderator of this occasion, Dr. Janathan sir, to give a special address. Please, sir.
Most respected Chairman Dr. Jayaraja of Raja's Institution, I think will join in due course of time. Respected Dr. George Thomas, Chairman, Kerala Biodiversity Board. Respected Principal Dr. Anil Kumar, Vice Principal Dr. Kumar, Professor Alapan, Jani Prasad, our coordinator, and dear faculty members and dear student participants. It's a very great pleasure for me to be with you this evening, and I'd like to share a few thoughts about the biodiversity. It's a broad area, but I will share very few information related to forestry and agro-ecosystem. Biodiversity is an intertwined feature of ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. Say, Amazon forest is a classical example for a balanced and good ecosystem leading to a good biodiversity. Each species of living organism of plants and the other organism, macro and microorganisms, they are packed very closely and with dependence on each other. Biodiversity is the stability of an ecosystem. An ecosystem with high biodiversity is stable and does not exhibit too much problem like outbreak of pests and diseases, which happens all of a sudden in agro-ecosystem and in recent days. In an agricultural ecosystem, We have crop, herbivores, natural enemies such as parasitoids, predators, pollinators such as honeybees, stingless bees, and solitary bees. There are many other beetles, for example, the dung roller, which does the scavenging work in the agroecosystem. If natural enemies are present in nature, they will feed on the crop pest and keep the biotic balance so that much damage is not caused. And also, we need not go for any other drastic measures which will affect the ecosystem. If insect pollinators such as honeybees, stingless bees, and solitary bees are in the ecosystem, it helps in cross-pollination, which is vital for our agricultural production. TNAU, Tamil Nadu University, has shown much emphasis on integrated pest management, which was introduced during 1980s in a very aggressive manner when Dr. Jairaj, former Vice Chancellor and former Director of Plant Protection of TNAU, he is the key person to introduce the IPM in a very aggressive way in order to keep the ecosystem in a healthy manner, in order to safeguard the biodiversity of our system. During the World Soil Health Day conducted in Indian Agricultural College, we have just shown the green manures throughout the farm in 110 acres in all the areas in between the orchard plants, between the agroforestry and so on, taking advantage of the northeast monsoon. And during the World Soil Health Day, we roped in all the students right from first year to final year, and we have incorporated the green manure into the soil rhizosphere of the Indian Agricultural College farm. The main aim is to encourage the soil microflora. You know very well, adding any organic matter to soil, it acts in different ways. It provides post-plant nutrition. It encourages the microflora, all the saprozoic fungi, saprozoic nematodes, bacteria, viruses, which are very helpful in the interaction of soil and also supplement the nutrients. So it's very important maintain the soil health by maintaining the microbes by addition of organic matter. In yesterday's news, in Hindu, I have seen that Tamil Nadu ranks second in NITI Ayog's SDG India Index, whereas Kerala State secured first rank among the states in our country, wherein they have evaluated 17 goals from poverty, health, education, gender equality, clean energy, biodiversity conservation, and so on. So in that aspect, I have to congratulate Dr. George Thomas that Kerala has obtained the first rank in the NITI Ayog's SDG Index. So it is very great thing, and Tamil Nadu State has obtained second rank. This is the news we have obtained yesterday's Hindu. So it's very appropriate. I thought it is to share this information to you, and the Indian Agricultural College is committed to restore the ecosystem, and we want to have a healthy agro ecosystem so that we can do our level best. You all know that we are also very careful in implementing integrated pest management, and we are using only eco-friendly management. And I want to inform you that we have not used any chemicals last year when we have raised the rice crop for the students' plot cultivation. So with these few words, I think we can hear a lot from Dr. George Thomas regarding the biodiversity and other information. I thank everyone and the management for giving an opportunity, being a moderator for this program. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to welcome Dr.C. George Thomas, sir, who had been with Kerala Agricultural University for a long time in various capacities and retired from regular service as Professor and Head Department of Agronomy. He also held the post of Associate Dean, College of Horticulture, Thrissur, and acted on various academic bodies including the Board of Studies and Academic Council of Kerala Agricultural University and Cochin University of Science and Technology. For a brief period, Dr. Thomas sir worked as the Director of Research in Integrated Rural Technology Center, Palakkad as well. Presently, he is the Chairman of Kerala State Biodiversity Board. He obtained MSc in Agronomy in Kerala Agricultural University and PhD from Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. Dr. Thomas sir has over 37 years of experience in teaching, research, extension, and guiding the students. He has done a great role in uplifting the life of many students. He is a recipient of Government of Kerala's Best Farm Journalist Award, Karshaka's Bharati Award. Dr. Thomas sir has published 17 books and over 350 other publications, including the research papers, chapters, and popular articles with national and international publishers. He is the author of best-selling book, Research Methodology and Scientific Writing, published by Springer Nature. Welcoming you, sir. We are happy to have you with us, sir. Now, I would like to invite our Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. C. George Thomas, sir, for the special address.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Honorable Chairman of Raja's Group of Institutions, Dr. S.A. Louis Raja, Honorable Principal, Professor Anil Kumar, he was my classmate and friend. Professor E.A. Jonathan, who is also moderating the session. And I know there are several distinguished members gathered here. So distinguished members of the faculty and my dear students. Well, it gives me immense pleasure to interact with you on this very important day, that is World Environment Day. Just 14 days back, we celebrated the World Biodiversity Day. Because being in the Biodiversity Board, we are supposed to celebrate that day as well. So for that Biodiversity Day's slogan or theme was, we are part of the solution. Okay, we are part of the problem and we are part of the solution also. So it was 22nd, 22nd. So now we are celebrating the Biodiversity Day with the theme, ecosystem restoration. So reimagine, recreate, and restore. So that is our motto. So ecosystems, biodiversity is a part of ecosystem. So these two are interrelated. Okay. So ecosystem restoration is the need of the hour. So we are talking about the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. We are witnessing the catastrophe which was occurred throughout the world. So that is why it is called a pandemic, not epidemic. It's a pandemic. So pandemics are happening, and climate change is happening, global warming is there, and so we are also fearing several backlashes from nature. So the United Nations, they declared 10-year period, that is 2021 to 2030, as the decade for ecosystem restoration. And in this respect, okay, so I think it is better to discuss when I present a presentation. So along with that, we'll discuss more about this. I think that is better. I hope you can see the screen. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, the screen is visible to you, all of you? Okay, okay, right. Well, I was just mentioning about United Nations, they're doing a lot of things for the restoration of the environment, restoration of the ecosystem, removing poverty, alleviating poverty, hunger, and so on. But the problem is, we may not be in a position to achieve everything. In 2000, so just in the beginning of the millennium, the United Nations, they declared Millennium Development Goals. So as you can see, there were 8 goals. The number 1, eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. And the number 7, ensure environmental sustainability. So environmental sustainability, that includes biodiversity, ecosystem, everything, environment. But we were not in a position to achieve. Of course, we were able to achieve something, but in 2015, after assessing the pros and cons of these MDGs or Millennium Development Goals, the United Nations, they declared Sustainable Development Goals. So this is to be achieved within a period of 15 years, 2015 to 2030. So there are 17 goals. So your moderator, your former director, he was mentioning about these SDG goals. Okay, so here there are 17 goals, and the first 2 are the most important. Number 1, no poverty. Number 2, zero hunger. And the 14 and 15, they are related to the biodiversity, life below water and life on land. Number 15. So all are related to biodiversity and environment. And you cannot simply say that only these 14 and 15 are important for biodiversity. No, all are related to ending poverty, to have a zero hunger world, everywhere biodiversity and environment are important. Anyway, my point of discussion is not the SDGs. I just want to say by 2030, we are supposed to achieve these goals. So the decade, the ecosystem restoration decade also falls along the lines of SDGs or core terminus, because by 2030, we are supposed to achieve the ecosystem restoration goals as well as SDG goals. Okay. Well, coming to, by 2030, there is the year in our target. So we must nearly have greenhouse gas emissions to prevent devastating climate change. Climate change is there. Need to say, I'll just remind you another accord or another treaty. In 2015, we also signed the Paris Accord or Paris Climate Accord. That means we should be in a position to limit the rise in temperature by 2 degrees Celsius than that of the pre-industrial level. So in order to limit the increase by 2 degrees Celsius, we have to do a lot of things. So we must have our greenhouse gas emissions, then in order to eliminate poverty and in order to fight diseases and in order to safeguard biodiversity, vast progresses in SDG are necessary. So, and moreover, if you do not know anything about 1 million species which are on the verge of extinction, maybe it may reality. So we have to act fast. Then, first of all, I'll tell you something about biodiversity and its conservation. Then I'll shift on to ecosystem restoration, because these two are related. So this is just a definition. All of you may be having an idea about biodiversity. So that is the biodiversity of life on Earth. It is defined as the variability among living organisms from all sources, including diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystem. That means species diversity, genetic diversity, and diversity within ecosystem. So the genetic diversity is mainly related to agro-ecosystem, agriculture crops. And so when you say something, how this biodiversity, the word originated, initially it was biological diversity. It happened in 1980 by an Egyptian, Thomas Lovejoy. So he used that term. So these are all comparatively recent. 1980 is somewhat recent, isn't it? And biodiversity, the contraction of the word biological diversity, was used by none other than Walter Rosen. So he was with the National Research Council of USA. Then Edward Wilson, who is considered as the father of biodiversity, he popularized the term biodiversity. 1 minute. വിളിച്ച് ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ശരി ശരി. Well, can you see the screen now? Screen, is there any problem?
No, sir, it's available.
It is not available.
It's clear and available, sir.
It is clear and available. This is
Yes,
second. This is second Millennium Development Goals. This is third one about Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. This is the fourth one. Now I am talking about biodiversity. So I hope you can see the screen now. So if there is any problem, please tell me. Is that okay?
Yes, sir, it's okay, sir.
Okay, right.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Well, see, we defined biodiversity, that is within species, between species, and the ecosystem. So we can say there are three levels of system diversity: species diversity and genetic diversity. So genetic diversity is all about our land races, cultivars, varieties, and so on, especially within species, inter and intra species differences are there. So when we talk about intra-specific, that is about genetic diversity. Okay, why is biodiversity important? So Edward O. Wilson, so I told you that he is considered as the father of biodiversity. He said, it is reckless to suppose that biodiversity can be diminished indefinitely without threatening humanity itself. So in the book, The Diversity of Life, he just kept, it is reckless to suppose that biodiversity can be diminished indefinitely without threatening humanity itself. So it is a very important observation. So everything that lives in an ecosystem is part of the web of life, including humans. So every organism, they are related. So we cannot exclude one species from other. So if the number of a particular species goes up, or if a species extinct, so that will tell upon the quality of life in that particular ecosystem. So each species of vegetation and each creature has a place on the earth and plays a vital role in the circle of life. So everything is included: plants, animals, insects, microorganisms. They interact and depend upon one another for oxygen, shelter, food, soil enrichment, and so on. So a rich biodiversity is essential for the sustainability of life on Earth. Okay, so it also mitigates, it also has several service roles. It mitigates climate change, rich resilience to climate change. Okay, so all producers, we know, all producers, they consume carbon dioxide and sequester, and mainly used for food production. So during that process, it helps the intake of greenhouse gas emissions, and carbon is also stored as a macronutrient in the cells of life forms, and it is also stored in soil as humus. Okay, so soil is a storehouse of carbon, and plants are also a storehouse of carbon. So that sort of sequestration is happening. Okay, so I already mentioned about these 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. So without effective measures of conserving biodiversity, it will be very difficult to achieve these SDGs. And it has been estimated that the global ecosystem services, so they are simply ecosystem services or environmental roles, moderation of climate, and so on. So it is equivalent to 125 to 140 trillion US dollar per year. So 1 trillion is equal to 10,000 crores. So you can imagine how huge the benefits of global ecosystem services. And this is just a estimate how many species are there. So we are talking about biodiversity. How many species are there? So many estimates were there. Anyway, a recent estimate say the species available on Earth is 8.7 million, plus or minus 1.3. That is standard error. So anyway, we can say it is almost 8.7 million. And some people say it ranges from 5 to 10. So this is a conservative estimate or a recent estimate. 8.7 million of eukaryotic species, of which 6.5 million are terrestrial and 2.2 marine animals. But mind you, only 20% species have been described, documented. Okay, and scientists, they are able to discover at the rate of 13,000 organisms per year. And so far, 1.6 million species have been catalogued, only 1.6 million. And 80% are still undocumented, not discovered or not identified. And you might have, all of you might have heard this term, biodiversity hotspots. What is biodiversity hotspots? India, how many biodiversity hotspots are there? So a biodiversity hotspot is an area with unusual concentration of species. Biodiversity, rich in biodiversity. So many of which are endemic. That's another qualification. So it is marked by a serious threat to its biodiversity by humans. So human beings are the culprits everywhere. Okay. So he is threatening biodiversity, he is threatening the environment, he is threatening the ecosystem. So during that process, his or her existence is also threatened, that he may not be understanding now. And Norman Myers, he was the person who coined biodiversity hotspot in 1988, and he defined that it is a biogeographic region characterized both by exceptional levels of plant endemism and by serious levels of habitat loss. So now there are 36 biodiversity hotspots, and that represent 60% of the world's plant, bird, mammal, reptile, and amphibian species. So there are 36 biodiversity hotspots now, and there are, out of these 36, 4 are in India. So there are some more additional definitions, etc. are given. I am not going to that kind of details because that may take some time and we don't have that much time. Anyway, as I told you, Myers in 1988, he listed 25 who coined the term biodiversity hotspot. He listed 25, and now it is 36 regions. 36 regions are biodiversity hotspots, and these regions cover about 15.7% of the land, but it harbors about 60% of the biodiversity. And these are the biodiversity hotspots in India: the Eastern Himalaya, then Indo-Burma, Sundaland, that means it includes Nicobar group of islands, and along with Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, Philippines, etc. And last is Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. That includes entire Western Ghats along with Sri Lanka. These 4 are the biodiversity hotspots in India. Then, what about biodiversity conservation? How we conserve? Anyway, human beings, we have identified 7 methods to conserve our biodiversity. So it is classified into 2: in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So in situ conservation means on-site conservation, or the conservation of genetic resources in natural populations. So then and there. So it is not removed. So in the natural habitat, we conserve the plant and animal species. It includes forest genetic resources of natural populations, and even in the case of domesticated or cultivated species, we also attempt in situ conservation. And this process ensures the sustainability of the natural habitats and ecosystem. So conservation of biodiversity in the natural habitat, that is in situ conservation. So we have ex situ conservation also. So that may not be in the natural habitat. Probably we may take it out and conserve. So here the germplasm is removed from the place where it is naturally growing and stored off-site. So sometimes we may store it as seeds, sometimes vegetative materials in vitro storage, and sometimes plant accessions in a botanical garden or a field gene bank, and sometimes in a zoological gardens, captive breeding, and aquarium. Okay, so ex situ conservation, we target all the levels of biodiversity, including species, genetic, and ecosystem. So we also target ecosystem conservation. You may be aware about the Ramsar Convention on wetlands. So such an international treaty is also there. In 1972, at Iran, this Ramsar is in Iran, where world nations assembled and decided to conserve our wetlands. And they also declared certain wetlands as Ramsar sites. Okay, and these Ramsar sites are important Ramsar sites. And India also, there are more than 30 Ramsar sites have been declared. So Chilika Lake is an important Ramsar site of North India. In Kerala also, probably some of you from Kerala may be knowing about this. Vembanad coal, there is an important Ramsar site of Kerala. Then from Kollam, Shastankota, Ashtamudi. So there are 3 Ramsar sites in Kerala declared as wetland of international importance. Okay, and I'll just go through the major in situ conservation methods. Probably you might have heard of these terms, Biosphere Reserves. Okay, so these are used to protect species in natural habitat for a long time. So that include the plants as well as animals. Biosphere reserves are usually seen in forests, and there are 18 biosphere reserves in India. Then comes national parks. So it is an area dedicated for the conservation of wildlife along with its environment. So national parks means for some wild animals, and there are about 103 national parks in India. Well, we have wildlife sanctuaries, and this is reserved for the conservation of animals. And there are about 551 wildlife sanctuaries in India. 551 wildlife sanctuaries. So, mind you, these are all in situ conservation methods. Then we have community reserve. So, this is a type of protected area in the Wildlife Protection Amendment just recently in 2002 to provide legal support to community or privately owned reserves. So, all others may be revenue lands owned by government, but these community reserves are usually community or privately owned reserves. And then we have some special projects to conserve threatened animals. We have Project Tiger, Project Elephant, Project Dolphin. Okay, so we have one system, one project for conserving dolphins of river Ganges. So that is Project Dolphin. Then Project Snow Leopard. So these are all projects. Then again, we have some projects for conserving hangul. That's a Kashmir stag. So that means it belongs to a type of deer. Okay. Then Indian rhinoceros. Then Indian crocodile, sea turtle, and so these kind of projects we have launched. Then sacred groves. I don't know whether sacred groves are so popular in Tamil Nadu, but in Kerala we have this system. These sacred groves are seen near temples, and because of the vicinity, nearness to temple, people adore these sacred groves, and they may not desecrate or degrade such sacred groves. Okay. Then, yeah, we have gene sanctuaries. So, gene sanctuary is mainly to conserve specific plants. For example, it may be very difficult to preserve or conserve wild relatives of agricultural crops or fruit plants. So, for example, in Meghalaya, Garo Hills of Meghalaya, they have a gene sanctuary for conserving wild relatives of citrus. So, it is the I think this is the only example for declaring a gene sanctuary for wild relative of a fruit plant. Then comes on-farm conservation, that is for agricultural crops, not native crops. So here, what we do is, or in the farm itself, agricultural crops or varieties are conserved. The farmers field, and such farmers are called custodian farmers. So there are some self-driven farmers who conserve jam blossom in the original habitat. That is what is meant by on-farm conservation. Then I told you about the Ramsar wetland sites. So I am not repeating that. India has 14 wetland sites designated as Ramsar site, and that the total area amount to 1 million hectares. Well, these are ex situ conservation strategies. I did not elaborate because you already know functions of a zoological garden or zoo. In the zoo, you conserve animals brought from other places for various purposes. Of course, tourism or showing to the students and studying, these are all part of a zoo, a zoological garden. Of course, captive breeding is another one. So if a particular animal is on the verge of extinction, so we do this captive breeding. Then aquarium is also has a similar function for fishes. Captive breeding and such other kind of things are happening in aquarium. Then botanical garden, of course. So all of you might have seen Ooty botanical gardens, and in very famous botanical gardens are there in Calcutta. So most of our crops were introduced first to this Calcutta Botanical Garden. And for example, a classic example is rubber. So rubber was first introduced at Calcutta Botanical Garden, and after a brief evaluation, then only it was introduced as a crop. And similarly, Kew Botanical Garden in England, it is world famous. So there also they conserve in various ways the jade blossom collections from all over the world. Then another kind of thing is biodiversity parks. So it is also a unique landscape where ecological assemblages of native species are conserved. So we may collect native species from, or endemic species from nearby area and enrich. So you can also enrich the forest available there, or you can have a new park as a whole. And biological parks are mainly attempted in villages as well as cities, urban areas. So sometimes in biodiversity park, both the elements of in situ as well as ex situ conservation are evident. Then a new intervention is Miyawaki forest. Miyawaki is the name of a botanist, Japanese botanist, Miyawaki. So what he did was, so he introduced a system whereby the secondary succession, you can hasten the secondary succession. Normally for establishing a forest, you may take 20 to 25 years, but in Miyawaki forest, it may take only 5 years. So it is an intensive way of establishing forest. Okay, then butterfly garden. So there are certain species of plants which can harbor butterflies. So we select that kind of trees, vegetation, and allow butterflies to multiply. And by this way, we can conserve butterflies and other insects. Then, of course, gene banks. So this probably you may be knowing, germplasm collection, seed banks for seeds, field gene banks for live plants, then in vitro gene banks, then pollen, chromosome, DNA banks for animals, living sperms, eggs, embryos, tissues, chromosome. And these are held in short-term storage or long-term storage. Sometimes it is preserved, cryopreserved, that means under very low temperature, and sometimes freeze-dried. Okay. Well, in the world level or global level, there are some facilities to conserve gene bank or seed bank. So you might have heard of this Biodiversity International. So Biodiversity International, it was formerly Biodiversity International or IBPGR. Earlier it was called International Plant Genetic Resources, ROM, International Plant Genetic Resources, that is now called Biodiversity International. So it manages an international plant genetic resources program. Okay, and they store huge quantity of agricultural germplasm. And now, if you put together, it is overseeing around 7.4 million. Okay, and out of that, CDIIR, I don't know how many of you are aware of this consultative group on agriculture research, and the CDIIR and it alone manages around 7 lakh, around 8 lakh accessions of 35 crops. And if you put together and this Biodiversity International, they oversees the accession, the collection, cataloging, evaluation, all these kind of things. Sometimes they may store not one specimen, but multiple specimens. That's why this 25 to 30% of the total holdings are distinct. The remainder is duplicate collections. So in India also, we have gene banks or seed bank facilities. We have NBPGR for plants or crops. We have a National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources, that is for animals. Then we have National Bureau of Agriculturally Important Microorganisms, that is at Mau in Uttar Pradesh. And we have National Bureau of Agricultural Insect Resources, that is at Bangalore. Then we have National Bureau of Fish Genetic Resources, that is in Lucknow. So these facilities are under Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Indian Council of Research. So all these maintain and conserve germplasm resources. So along with this, a few words about agricultural biodiversity or agrobiodiversity. So the variety and variability of animals, plants, and microorganisms that are used directly or indirectly for food, agriculture, including crops, livestock, forestry, and fisheries, that constitute agrobiodiversity. So everything for food, agriculture, crops, livestock, forestry, and fisheries. Okay, so this includes the genetic resources, that is cultivated varieties, breeds, which has been or which is being used for food, fodder, fiber, fuel, and pharmaceuticals. Okay, so here harvested biodiversity is there, so just been harvested, and non-harvested, that means it may not be useful, it may not be used as such, but that support production. So that includes soil microorganisms, predators, pollinators, etc. And ecosystem, that includes agricultural, pastoral, forest, and aquatic diversity. The ecosystem diversity is inherent in that part. Okay. Then we mentioned about custodian farmers. That is a new terminology which has been evolved. So who are custodian farmers? Custodian farmers are those who actively maintain, adapt, and disseminate agricultural biodiversity on farm and community levels. And they are known within the community for doing so. So there are some individuals who, for the sake of their community, for the sake of humanity, they conserve germplasm, the old land races or the old cultivars, probably along with the new high-yielding varieties. Okay, so they maintain a large collection of crops and their cultivars and land races. Okay, so they are the custodian farmers, and we respect them, we give awards them, we encourage them for doing so. Well, regarding the Convention on Biological Diversity, so it happened in 1992 during Rio Earth Summit. Okay, so Rio de Janeiro as a part of Earth Summit, and there the Convention on Biological Diversity was also approved. Okay, so this convention, so I am not, since I don't have time, otherwise I would have told you much more about this Convention on Biological Diversity. So, having recognized the importance of maintaining biodiversity, world nations assembled at Rio de Janeiro and signed a treaty, and they accepted sustainable development. Of course, in that particular convention, the idea of sustainable development has been approved, and they also finalized Agenda of 21. Agenda 21 means for the 21st century. Okay, so there they signed this Convention on Biological Diversity, and the National Biodiversity Authority and the State Biodiversity Board. These are all the fallout of the convention on biological diversity, because the signatories of this convention are bound to create MBA and other state biodiversity board. And CBD, Convention on Biodiversity, has three main objectives: conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of the components of biological diversity, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the utilization of the genetic resources. These three are the main objectives. Now, back to square one, the ecosystem restoration. Okay, so here we have to define an ecosystem. What is an ecosystem? So yeah, an ecosystem is a place where a community of plants, animals, and other organisms, in conjunction with the landscape and non-living components of an environment, interacting as a system. So an ecosystem may be as large as a forest, or a small pond, a tank, a pond, or a small lake. So these are examples of an ecosystem where non-living as well as living beings interact as a system for their benefit. They receive or they get food from there. They get other kind of things, for a living from this ecosystem. Water, food, building materials, and a host of other essentials are received or produced from this ecosystem. And it also gives planet-wide benefits. That means service benefits like climate protection and biodiversity conservation. That is why I told you an ecosystem and biodiversity are very much related. And in the UN Charter of Ecosystem Restoration, they identify 8 main types of ecosystems for restoration. So they are in a bad shape, and they want to have policies and programs for the restoration of these 8 ecosystems. And these 8 ecosystems include forests, farmlands, freshwater ecosystem, that includes rivers, lakes, and wetlands, mountains, then shrublands, grasslands, and savannas. These 3 are considered together. Then oceans and coasts, then peatlands, and urban areas. Okay, then you may wonder, what is the meaning of ecosystem restoration? So ecosystem restoration, when we say that, a host of program assisting in the recovery of ecosystems that have been degraded or destroyed, and also as well as conserving the ecosystem that are still intact. Okay, so 2 aspects: recovery of ecosystem that have been degraded. Number 2, conserving the ecosystem that are still intact. So these 2 constitute ecosystem restoration. So you can do this restoration in many ways, through actively planting, just like we do tree planting on World Environment Day. But along with that, you can do this planting in forests, you can do this planting in grassland. Sometimes we go for reseeding with the grass species in order to revitalize degraded grasslands. Okay, and the last is more important. Sometimes, sometimes we may not, it is not, or sometimes it is not desirable at all to retain an ecosystem to its original state. For example, converted forests as farmlands. And we still need farmland and infrastructure on land that was once forest, for instance, and ecosystems like societies need to adapt to a changing climate. That means we want to retain farmlands or agricultural land assets. So if you ask somebody to return this agricultural land, okay, once these were forests, so let us bring back these 2 forests. So no farmer will agree to that. Okay, so let that be there. Let that be, that kind of agricultural lands be sustainable. That is what is required for that. Okay, and UNO, they also estimate the value of restoration. They say is between now and 2030, the restoration of so they assess that 350 million hectares of terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems are degraded, and if you are able to restore them, you can earn 9 trillion in ecosystem services. That is equal to 90,000 US dollar, 90,000 crores of US dollar. Okay, 1 trillion is equal to 10,000 crore. So 9 trillion or 90,000 crores of US dollar in terms of ecosystem services. And this is also equal to 13 to 26 gigatons of greenhouse gases. 1 gigaton is 100 tons. Sorry, 100 crores, 100 crores, 1 giga. Okay, then you can also say, oh, this requires huge investment of money for restoring 350 million hectares. Okay, so receipts I have mentioned there, and we expect that we'll be able to get 9 times as that of the cost of investment. 9 times. So if you spend 100 rupees, you may get 900 rupees back. But if you still simply sit there without doing anything, you may lose 3 times more costly than the ecosystem restoration. Okay, so for ecosystem restoration, if you are spending 100, you may get 900, and if you are not doing anything, you may lose 3 times. That means around 300 rupees. Like that way. This is just an example. Well, just I will go through the various ecosystems. 8 ecosystems are there. Number 1, forest. I need not tell you the importance of forest. We know that it is a storehouse of carbon, and it is the most important ecosystem which harbor biodiversity. And the forests are cleared for agriculture purposes every year, and every year we lose about 4.7 million hectares of tropical forest. So anyway, the deforestation drive or deforestation is creating so much of problem. It has to be restored back. And there are several ways. So, several ways of doing this. I already mentioned about biological parks, reseeding, planting, and so on, or declaring a conservation site. So there are various ways for conserving forests. Then comes our farmlands, agricultural landscapes. Second, ecosystem. See, you might have studied that some 10,000 years ago. So before 10,000, all human beings were living in forests. They were part of the forest ecosystem. And 10,000 years ago, humans, they were forced to start agriculture. Okay, so they come out from forest and they began to grow crops, and they converted agricultural lands. The first form of agriculture probably maybe zooming or what you call punam cultivation, okay, or shifting cultivation, and in that process, around 38% of the global land is now cultivated. 38%, about 1/3 of land surface is now farmlands. So how we will make this farmland sustainable? Okay, so there are several ways. Intensive plowing, cultivation, intensive plowing, and various intensive practices, large monoculture. So monoculture is an enemy for sustainability. overgrazing, and there are several issues which are there in agricultural land. So this has how to be considered well and sustainable agricultural practice. I won't say organic farming practices, because we have to consider the needs of humanity as well. So I'll tell you an example. Now you know there are 7.9 billion people in the world, 790 crores of people, and these 790 may reach more than 1,000 crores by 2050, and we have to produce 70% more in order to feed that much people by the time. And just imagine, in 1800 AD, our world population was simply 100 crores. Okay, in 1800 AD, simply 100 crores, and these 100 crores become 300 crores in 1960 after 160 years. And you just imagine, within a period of 13 years, simply 13 years, 39 years, the 300 doubled and become 600 crores in 13 years. So that was a very difficult time, 60 to 99, that 39 years. So anyway, the humanity was able to tide over these crises because of the movements like Green Revolution, White Revolution, and so on. And the 600 crores in 99 become 790 now, an addition of 190 crores of people. Okay, this will become 1,000 crore by 2050. And anyway, we have to make our agricultural land sustainable by following good agricultural practices. So number 3, freshwater. I told about rivers. I told about wetlands, then lakes, streams, and so on. So this ecosystem is also in peril. There, the banks are and the width and the depth of our rivers are decreasing. Deterioration of banks are also there. So many problems are there. Okay, so it is the it houses, or it is a home of about 1/3 of all vertebrate species, and it also mangroves. Mangroves is a part of this freshwater ecosystem, and that shield our coast against tsunamis and erosion. And the fish wealth is there. Then I already mentioned about wetlands of Ramsar ecosystem. And well, see, rivers are facing, it is a major source of our freshwater for humans, freshwater for animals, and it also faces additional impacts from dams, mining for sand mining, gravel mining, and various other kinds of encroachment from humanity for their greed. Okay, wetlands are also drained for agriculture, and an estimate says 87% of wetlands, it has been lost during the last 300 years, and 50% during the last 100 years itself. Okay, and another estimate say 1 in 3 species face extinction now. A fourth ecosystem is mountains, the so-called Himalayas, Arctic, Alps. So there are ever so many mountain systems are there. Some are covered with snow. Western Ghats, of course, it's also mountain, but that is not covered with snow. But if you go up, like Ooty or Kodaikanal, there also sometimes you may confront this kind of glaciers or snow. They are also freshwater ecosystems. In fact, 1/4 of the Earth's land is mountains and harbor most of its biodiversity hotspots. That 36, I told about 36 biodiversity hotspots, and our Western Ghats itself is one hotspot. Okay, and Eastern Himalaya, another hotspot. Okay, so it is biodiversity. And what happens is, mountain region is, earlier, probably some 200 years back or 300 years back, people were not living in mountains. They were under cover of trees or so. But because of our population pressure, people began to occupy mountains also. They clear slopes, and sometimes they start with plantations, and in the process, erosion is ascent our rivers and so on. Okay, and mountains, almost all the mountains are really under human pressure from climate change and their other kind of activities. And we are also hearing the case of melting of glaciers. So what happens if our Himalayan glaciers start melting? So that may, because of that, our sea level may rise, and that will tell upon the quality of, and sometimes, some islands may be underwater. So that may not happen near, but we can expect this kind of catastrophes in the near future. Okay, so sometimes, for restoration measures, we recommend agroforestry, like the kind of things like salt, sloping agricultural land technology, afforestation, and such other kind of things are recommended for mountainous slopes. Next comes number 5, that is grasslands, shrublands, and savannas. So grasslands are relatively tree-free. There are not much trees in grasslands, but shrublands is a majority. They are shrubs, but in savannas, the shrubs as well as grasses, they intermingle and seed. So these are also under threat, and especially now used for grazing purposes. Grazing purposes in the sun, in the world, there are some celebrated grasslands like Kunda. Then we have what they call Pampas. Pampas is a place in South America. Okay, and in the race. So these are all grasslands specific to that kind of climate. Okay, so savanna is tropical. So others are temperate, and vast stretches of grasslands are available in Australia. So these are also being degraded, and these are necessary for rearing of sheep, goats, and other kinds of animals. Then come oceans and coast, a very important ecosystem for survival. This is very important for fishermen. Of course, we also need oxygen. Much of our oxygen is generated from the 70% of area. We know that 70% of Earth is occupied by oceans, and it also has a very important role in regulating climate and improving our economy, tourism, fisheries, biodiversity. It ranges from plankton and the coral reefs. So many, a plethora of vegetation, a plethora of animals, fishes, and so on and so forth are inherent in this ocean ecosystem. Okay, and it is also facing threats, mainly from pollution, plastic waste, and encroachment of people. So in order to save the system, and especially fishes, sometimes we go for trawling ban of trawling. You know the meaning of trawling, fishermen. Okay, so they won't allow, the government won't allow fishermen to use heavy machinery to catch fish, because it will affect the breeding of fishes, and that may tell upon the resources as a fish as a resources. Its number may dwindle because of the overfishing. So that time we use overfishing. Okay. And moreover, wastewater, we use oceans as a wastewater dumping site. So that must be stopped. Should be there to purify wastewater and push into the oceans. Okay. Then comes peatlands. Peatlands, number 7. Peatlands. Peatlands means the places. There are some places around 3% of the world is peatlands, and it has been distributed in 180 countries. And there are some places in India also. In Kerala, we have Kutanad, this Kutanad region. In that Kari part, we have this peatland. That means undecomposed or partially decomposed organic matter, trees, trunks, sticks, etc. are buried, and they are still their assets. So sometimes people go there and they drain peatlands and use it for agricultural purposes. That is again degrade, or that releases huge quantities of carbon dioxide in that process. So that is also not sustainable, because if we want to keep our global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius, we have to retain our peatlands as such. So the last is urban areas, so-called towns and cities. So it is also a part of our system, urban areas. And because even though urban areas is just 1% of the planet Earth, it houses some 50% of the people. So 50% of people are living in urban areas, half of its people. So when you hear the term cities, the steel and concrete skyscrapers, crowds, traffic, etc. come into your mind. Still, you cannot avoid or you cannot ignore this important ecosystem. You cannot say it is an ecosystem desert. You cannot say like that. Okay, so you have to protect, and even though they are highly degraded, you can use several ways to improve them. You can have botanical gardens there. You can have biodiversity parks. You can have Miyawaki model forest. You can establish a zoo there. Then go for avenue tree planting, lawns, and you can have sidewalks, permeable sidewalks. That means water should percolate there. And you can also create small urban wetlands. So these are some of the ways suggested for restoration of urban areas. Okay, so I think I can conclude with our section. I think our time is now 9:07. So all kinds of ecosystem can be restored, not only these 8 or 7. If there are, if you identified some more ecosystems, whether it is forest, farmland, cities, wetlands, or oceans, you have to appropriate measures and implement them. And through that process, you can restore. Then, and you can, the initiative, who will start the initiatives? Of course, can be done by so many people, from governments, policymakers, development agencies, business houses, okay, or communities. Community means societies, or urban dwellers, individuals. But the thing is, you have to adopt appropriate methods. Okay. So thank you very much for hearing me and giving me an opportunity to interact with you. Okay.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of everybody here, I would like to thank you, sir, for this mesmerizing explanation. And I'm sure that our students has gained a lot of knowledge from you, sir. And also, I use this opportunity to thank you for spending your valuable time with us, sir. Reuse the past, recycle the present, and save the future.
Yes, you're right. Recycling is a magic. Now, let me call upon Dr. S. Alagappan sir, Professor and Head, Department of Agronomy, TIAC, to share his views on organic recycling technologies. Please, sir.
Respected Chairman of our Rogers Group, Dr. S. Jayaraja sir, respected Principal, Dr. A. Sanil Kumar sir, our advisor, Dr. Jonathan sir, and most respected our Chief Guest, Dr. George Thomas sir, and Vice Principal, Dr. Kumar sir, and CEL Coordinator, Joni Prasad sir, and my beloved faculty colleagues, participants, students, and friends. First of all, I welcome you all for this World Environmental Day function celebration. And sir, our Chief Guest sir has given very explorative speech and very interesting towards this restoration of biodiversity and celebration of biodiversity and all. So I'm going to go ahead again with all these aspects. Now, with respect to my topic, I'll just move upon. Basically, restoration approaches starts with a reclamation of land procedures, land management system. Revegetation is another important system. Then rehabilitation or maintaining the cultural or bringing back to the cultural or natural environment of the destroyed ecosystem to bring it back to a certain extent. And recreation, how to enrich with aesthetic sense with developing the gardens or any other areas, such a recreational system, or developing the tourism spots like that. Then ecological engineering development system, and how for the water management, this effectively can use the recycling of waters, all other areas and all. Then environmental management system as a whole to manage the restoration of the all ecosystems. So basically it's all divided on these aspects. And nutrient cycling is concerned, it's all top-down mechanism is being followed throughout the world, top-to-down mechanism. See, all forest ecosystem, the litters falls down on the earth and accumulates to several periods for the heat up like even several feet together, and it's undergone the process on mineralization and brings out with the humus, with rich with nutrients as well as the organic acids and rich with organic carbon content, and it helps over a period of time to manage and balance soil pH as well as the soil EC, the basic physical parameters of the soil. So to enhance the functioning of the degraded ecosystem, the reclamation of the restoration of soil organic matter plays a vital role. Whatever the process we add into the soil, either through in the form of green vegetations or the brown vegetations or any proportion of the vegetations, either in the form of greens means is a fresh leaf materials, either green manures or green leaf manures or any leaf materials being fall into the air and is being brought back to the agriculture field or horticulture field as in the form of transportation or by natural means or through beams, whatever it is. So the accumulation of greens raw materials accumulates nitrogen enrichment in the soil system, whereas the brown raw materials collections, which especially brown raw materials collection comes from the piece roots of the woods or your wood pieces or wood powder, and even materials available from the coir pith industries and coconut board byproducts of any industries or any dried materials of the plant debris or straws or even sugarcane trashes, whatever the materials being available. So it's all turned into the brown, that is a dried one, which adds up instead of adding nitrogen, which adds up organic carbon into the system. So this is the basic recycling purposes being added, and by natural source of enrichment through the vermi So it's naturally doing a lot of work on the field, either in the ecoforest systems as well as in the agricultural agroecosystems or any other horticulture ecosystems also. Any fertile soil rich with this green, vermi worms, so it produces a lot of vermi worms excreta is called as the vermi compost or vermi castings. Then this vermi castings are enriched with a lot of nutrients and it adds directly the biological nutrients to the crop components. and it enhances the soil fertility and productivity and its sustenance for a longer period of time, and it helps a lot in the organic farming purposes to maintain the soil productivity levels over a period of long time, and it reduces all residual effects by natural means. Then usually the litter accumulations, whatever the leaf green forms as well as the dry forms of manures, materials available and is being accumulated on soil, it's subject to go for mineralization process, and it's converted into humus on release of CO2 as well as H2O. Then again it adds up organic carbon over a period of time and enriches with lots of organic acids and biologically available nutrients to the crops. Then we move on to, apart from land recycling as well as the enrichment purpose alone, land and water plays a vital role in the total agro-ecosystem's productivity and production is concerned, or food security is concerned. So in this concept, we move on to this restoration of coastal land dunes. So restoration of coastal land dunes, it leads to soil microbial content has to be improved a lot. Then native species has to be protected and it has to be well maintained, and native seedings has to be done for the development of the restoration of the projects. Then restoration of lakes, whereas the lakes is concerned, we have to maintain the purity of the lake, the water quality has to be maintained, and contamination with other rank vegetations floating on the lake medium has to be avoided and it has to be removed. Then unwanted pest and some unwanted species produced in the lakes also has to be noticed and it has to be removed. So in such a way we have to maintain the lakes also. The restoration of rivers also in the same case. We have to maintain the river banks, we have to maintain the native species. Relative native species has to be protected and maintained over that. And then riparian systems of restoration also has to be maintained in the forest ecosystems. And mainly in the forest ecosystems, it's a passive restoration as well as active restorations being followed. So what is passive restoration is abandoning of farms, number one. And number two is reducing the logging activities. Then livestock's grazing has to be reduced. Then reduce non-native species. So these are all the passive restoration of the forest ecosystems is being followed. Then active forest restoration. Forest restoration in the active form, how it is being managed is the deforestation activities has to be improved. Then enrichment planting has to be improved. Direct seeding with the native plants has to be improved. So these are all things has to be managed in the, and buffer zones of the forest can be developed and maintained, and even for buffer nurseries also can be developed for the re-establishment or deforestation activities. So that are all the activities has to be followed. Then restoration of habits, critical habitats. So the critical habitats has to be maintained properly. So all these things has to be maintained systematically. So what are the basic benefits we get out of the restoration benefits? So with the land and water, recycling of nutrients, well-managed systems, what are the basic benefits we'll derive? First of all, we can protect the lands from erosion and runoff. That is the number one benefit. And the second benefit is the protection of plant genetic resources, and native species can be maintained as such without any much of losses or damages. Then endangered species can be maintained even in the forest ecosystems. Then improving environmental conditions without causing much damages, and especially in forest ecosystems, the crown fire and ground fire as well as the surface fire causing the very huge damages, and it devastates like anything even then, and leads to even endangering species, native species spoilage, as well as the total vegetation cover gets spoiled, and it's very difficult to reproduce such systems and bring it back to the natural system. Even for several years it takes a time. Then improves native species product biodiversity. Then restoration improving the wildlife habitats also, both in forest ecosystems as well as in the natural ecosystems. Re-establishment of potential native species also is being developed and maintained. So it's all about my speech on recycling and how it brings back the value additions to the all agro ecosystems in the biodiversity maintenance. Thank you one and all for giving me the opportunity to give some few wordings on this aspect. Thank you. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite our beloved Professor A. Joni Prasad, sir, coordinator of Online Learning Program TISC, to express his views on new initiatives in e-learning for ecosystem restoration.
So thank you, Niveda. So I'm very glad to speak as the coordinator of the Center for E-Learning of the Indian Agriculture College. And my name is Joni Prasad, and I am the assistant professor in agriculture extension in this college. So we all know that the common thing that the nature has given human beings enough to lead a healthy and happy life. But the greediness of human beings has gone to an extent that Mother Nature is under severe threat nowadays from the human beings. So they must do something to the Indian Agriculture College has taken initiatives to protect our nature and the environment. Under the able guidance of our principal and our vice principal, we had developed a Miyawaki herbal forest in our campus, which is a best step forward to protect the mother nature. Also, our NSS unit under the leadership of Ms. Tamilinia, Program Officer NSS, has taken up a tree planting program at the Nagru School in Vadakkankulam. Also, the Rave students of the 2017 batch had taken up various initiatives to educate the farmers of our district to protect our environment. The students had initiated a tree planting program in their place of stay during their Rave program. As coordinator of the we have now initiated training programs online mode protect our environment. So we have organized training programs under various topics such as value-added composting technologies, biofertilizers in agriculture, organic agriculture, medicinal plants for home remedies, mushroom cultivation, etc. These topics as well as the society, so that the people will become aware of maintaining and protecting our environment. Programs are aimed at protecting and conserving our mother nature. For example, we give importance to mushroom cultivation because it is a good source of natural protein, whereby the slaughtering of animals for consumption can be reduced because we get natural protein from the plant source. So I conclude by saying that we in Indian Agriculture College have started initiatives to protect our mother nature. So we are very glad to announce a competition for the students to celebrate the World Environment Day. Our students, please listen. So we are going to conduct a competition for you. All the students are expected to plant a tree sapling in your house today or tomorrow or within 2 or 3 days. Then you have to take a photograph of that tree sapling along with you and send to us, so that you have to maintain that tree sapling. And after 1 month, so today is June 5, and July 5, you again take a photograph of the tree sapling. So you have nurtured that and grown that. So you stand near that tree sapling and take another photograph and send to us. So I will give the details where you have to send, which mail ID you have to send. So it will be given to you. So this is the competition for you. So we will select the best photos. We will select the best students who are showing great concern for the nature, for the environment. So, by sharing their amount of interest, by growing these trees. So we will select the photographs, and these photographs, these students will be given certificates, certificate of appreciation, as well as we can even publish their photos in our college magazine. So students, you just take it as a challenge and plant a tree, each one of you, at least one tree sapling within a few days, and send us the photograph. So you will be awarded and our country will be rewarded. So with these few words, I again thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, sir, for your elegant speech. And we promise that we will surely take part in this competition. And we are ready to accept your challenge too, sir. Thank you, sir. When expressing your thankfulness to others, it not only makes others feel great, but also makes you to feel great. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. R. Kumar, sir, the Vice Principal of TIAC, to deliver the vote of thanks. Please, sir. Sir, please kindly unmute your mic, sir.
Sorry. Good evening to all. Our most respected chairman, sir. So he is a busy schedule. He is unable to join with us. But anyhow, his wishes always with us. And I thank our respected advisor, sir, to giving a nice message about biodiversities, exclusively agricultural biodiversities. Thank you, sir, for joining with us and giving your nice message. And I thank our most respected chief guest of today program. There is no word to say him. So he is giving a wonderful message about biodiversities, and he is talking about various aspects for restorations and conservations, etc., etc. It's a wonderful message. And first of all, I thank you, sir, to accept our invitations. And
Sir, please unmute your microphone, sir.
sorry. Sir, respected chairman, sir, from Biodiversity Board from Kerala State. Sir, what you are giving your message. So ultimately, the degradations of the biodiversities. So it is responsible for the human habitations. Yes. And now we are trying to sustainable for the biodiversities, and we are looking for various aspects, and government of India and global level, they are initiating various actions. But I request our students who are participate today and faculty members, we should avoid the plastics. We will be sustained. Thank you, sir. Thank you to participate, and we are getting wonderful opportunity to meet with you through this platform. Thank you, sir. And I thank our respected principal, sir. So he is a key person for today functions. You know, so yesterday the sir is discuss about this program in late evening, and he told Kumari how to organize this program. Okay, sir, then I will organize, then I will inform to others, and I will prepare the program agenda also. I said like that. But today morning I saw the mobile. He prepared the agenda, and he sent, and he called me. So when he is sleeping, I don't know. So such kind of persons we are getting as a principal. Really, we salute you, sir. And I thank Dr. Alapan sir, professors, for giving your wonderful message. And also I thank the coordinator, e-learning coordinators, Dr. Joni Prasad sir. So thank you for your message. And I thank administrative officers and software team, Vikram sir. Thank you so much. I think today program it is telecasted in YouTube also. Thank you for your support. I thank all the students, from 2017 batch and 2018 batch and 2019 batch and 2020 batch. Thank you for your participations. Thank you. And I thank our comparing team. I congratulations Nibeda and Nibeda, your wonderful support and coordinations. Thank you. Once again, I thank you all to participate in these programs. Thank you for giving me these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And here we comes to the end of this session today. It's time for us to come together, to move forward, to grow together.
My dear friends, if we live on Earth, then this way Earth is our first home. Forget about our different homes and keep your focus on the Earth, our joint home. We should keep our Earth clean, green and crime-free so that environment here can nourish us and not cause us trouble. I'm convinced that if you all people follow your responsibilities in a sensible way, then the day is not so far when all living beings will live happily on this planet under the roof of a healthy environment.
It's time to decide, paper or plastic. Less pollution is the best solution. So let's stop pollute and then nature will give us a salute.
Thank you.
you.